Welcome. So we are halfway through Alien Earth, a series I was hoping would be the Andor of the Alien franchise. While everybody else seems to be praising the show, for instance, Empire magazine has called it a masterpiece, awarding it 5 out of 5 stars. For me, it's been a rocky road, if I'm honest. However, I'm pleased to say that episode 4, named Observation, was a little more to my liking. Nobody cranked the ridiculous knob up to 11 this time around, and something about the whole hour just felt more balanced. The show seemed to have finally found its footing in this one, as the unsettling calm before the storm was not only evident in the slow and methodical episode, but I thought the pacing, atmosphere, character development, and the gradual rise of tension really had time to flourish here. Some might see this as a filler episode due to the monster downtime, but I felt Chapter 4 provided us with some narrative scaffolding, as they say, and seeded a little more character motivation into the story, since we spend a lot of time with most of the main characters who are now restricted to Neverland Facility. Sure, there were numerous Peter Pan references forced down our throats once more, as well as the persistent nod towards contemporary culture with the Ice Age 4 film that keeps making an appearance. Not only that, our supreme leader of Prodigy, Boy K, displays even more of his false bravado and posturing in every scene he is in. I do wonder if his character should have been written with more of a silent, thoughtful, calm and collective demeanour, like the way Michael Corleone was portrayed in The Godfather. I think I would have preferred a quiet and calculating presence rather than these constant outward displays of "I know better than you, so I'm going to talk over my staff and impose my will every time you suggest science and reason." That being said, he is slowly starting to grow on me, if only to see this megalomaniac crash and burn. The opening scene sees the company's primary focus now shift from the development and enrichment of hybrid technology to the wondrous yet highly volatile extraterrestrial specimens that have been rapidly stowed away in Prodigy Labs, of which presents an exciting and possible lucrative avenue of interest to Boy K. For all of his showboating as he treats his subordinates with utter contempt, his real genius and means of acquiring such wealth, as later revealed by a conversation between Dame and her husband, is his desire to jump on unconventional projects and accelerate them into risky territory using fringe science. Therefore, it's safe to say that things can only get worse from here. As Wendy's brother and some essential staff remain, I did appreciate the growing ominous vibe that sets in and continues to escalate over the course of the hour. Boy K's rising obsession with Wendy's unique ability to hear the xenomorph communicate could lead us down an interesting road. We have of course heard their shrieks and hisses before, very much audible to humans, but within this particular frequency may lie a very different form of communication. I'm now eager to learn within this method of the xenomorph's ability to communicate with one another, if the show may explore a more sophisticated level of intelligence previously unknown to us. Alien certainly portrayed the big chap as a cunning predator, yet Aliens represented them as belonging to a hive mind, as evidenced by the presence of a queen. Oh, did I mention queen? We'll get to the ending soon enough, don't worry. And remember folks, as is now tradition with Alien, the further back we go, the greater the technology. With some persuasion, Wendy discovers that she can now articulate a perfect vocalization of this language, and do so in frequencies that are audible to human ears. At the end of the scene, when Atom asks Boy K to ponder why they are trying to communicate at all, and then reminds him that they may know Wendy can hear them too, it had me thinking, will the show eventually botch this fascinating new concept, or will it pleasantly surprise us? As the last few minutes of the episode do confirm a certain direction the show will take. There are small scenes here and there that serve to either unify relationships, such as the reunion of the brother and sister, or drive a wedge between the thinly veiled bond the Lost Boys share. Joe has little choice or say in Wendy's well-being after the oppressive dictatorship of Prodigy's leader, who sees Wendy only as property with exponential value, and a few of the hybrids begin to feel increasingly at odds with one another. There is internal friction, such as Curly's need to be recognised and loved by her creator, a dilemma resulting from her envy of Wendy's innate gifts she does not possess. Then there is the external threat of Morrow and his manipulative stranglehold on Slightly, who now becomes well and truly ensnared in his web of deception, leading to coercion. What I find very compelling about this dire game Morrow is playing with Slightly for which the results are absolutely crucial to Morrow if he wants to return his life's work to Yutani, is that Kirsch is now well aware of Slightly's predicament and chooses not to intervene or report this breach of security to his superiors. In a brief, ever so vague but engrossing scene, Kirsch appears in his room after initially learning of the open line of dialogue between them. He explains how the once philosophical Buddhist teachings of see no evil, hear no evil, and speak no evil have come to represent something else entirely. With some malice in his voice, he poses a firm question to Slightly. If I hurt or cause others to be hurt, would you do something to stop me or look the other way? Morrow whispers one word to Slightly. Careful, he says, perhaps understanding the hidden meaning behind his question. I got the sense that Kirsch was indeed testing the hybrid, as the child suspected, by asking him a simple question that would ultimately expose the nature of his intentions. Perhaps he was implying Morrow as the individual willing to hurt others, in this case Slightly's family, therefore revealing Slightly's willingness to save them by aiding Morrow in his urgent request to retrieve an alien embryo. And meanwhile, a disturbing scene that we were all waiting for, and for the most part, it didn't disappoint. It's most likely impossible, but can you imagine how much more effective this creature would be if it were crafted with practical effects, something more akin to the monster in The Thing? That being said, the sequence wasn't without its horror. What made it particularly disturbing for me was the creature's insatiable desire to carry out its biological function, and then learning that it wasn't merely a life form purely running on instinct, but a cold, calculating killer with a high level of intelligence, as demonstrated by its transition from an act of horrific violence to a calm, observational stance, and in that one brief moment, reversing the meaning behind the episode's title as they also observe us. The way it stood on 2 feet before it could adjust into a new nervous system was creepy. Maybe a memory of a previous victim, or just a nerve response, who knows. The use of CG, as always, does take away, but the manner in which it glared at its captors afterwards was haunting. After the surprising revelation that Nibs believes she is pregnant, Dame does her best to teach her about the birds and the bees in a quite secluded location, which turns out not to be the best of ideas. It's safe to say that Nibs will be the first to crack, and I did wonder when this undercurrent of menace would begin to escalate. These children gifted with superhuman strength would inevitably succumb to tantrums or psychological outbursts. I also wonder if there is a built-in kill switch, as when the security officers arrived, there was little doubt in my mind that there would be nothing they could do if violence broke out. Atom, or Atom, played by Adrian Edmondson. I just thought I'd throw in a sound effect for anyone who understands the comedic reference. He's shaping up to be a riveting presence. He embodies the side of Prodigy that you do not mess with, whether it be legal, financial, a negotiator, or a problem solver. Everything we don't see from its egotistical pajama-wearing CEO. You really feel the predicament Joe is in, wanting to rescue his sister after his emotional beating from the company's fixer. Atom grounds every scene he's in, perhaps reminiscent of a king's hand in the world of Westeros. But they are two sides of the same coin, and I look forward to seeing how Prodigy handles things with them both at the helm. The scene between Boy K and Wendy demonstrates more of the trillionaire's manipulative and self-serving nature. One might argue that it wouldn't be too difficult to play games of reverse psychology and emotional blackmail on a child. But there are too many variables on the chessboard in this crucial moment, meaning Boy K needs a battle plan if he wants to know everything he can about these creatures before the Yutani Corporation starts to become a significant problem for him. Therefore, along with Wendy's brother, argumentative staff, and the fragility of the hybrid's mindsets, time is also a huge factor here. Just after Slightly blunders his first attempt to enter the lab and steal an egg, Kirsch remains in the lab alone and later listens in on a conversation between Morrow and Slightly, this time discovering that there is a more urgent and malicious intent behind Morrow's demands of the naive hybrid. This exchange really affirms Morrow as one of the show's main antagonists, which is truly saying something as we navigate a cutthroat corporate landscape and an imminent attack from multiple invasive species. As Morrow gives Slightly his final ultimatum to sacrifice a human in order to transport an embryo out of the facility, which is some Burke-level treachery right there. Kirsch calmly listens and continues to be an unreadable presence, mysteriously ambiguous and an inscrutable relic of malice to come. But for whom? I hate to bring up the analogy, but as he unlocks the egg holding cell and caresses one of the overmorphs with equal parts curiosity and measured restraint, doesn't he remind you of another synthetic whose inquisitiveness turns into obsession? Is it possible that the early scene with the scorpion, when he asks Wendy how she would feel being trapped under glass and menaced by giants, might symbolize his desire to free himself from humanity's restraints, with the xenomorph serving as his means to achieve this? For me, Kirsch is the heart of the series and one of the main reasons I watch it. The outdoors Jenga scene featuring the hybrids and Joe offers a little more context to the surrounding world. Joe explains that the Five Corporation stepped in after an all-world governance failed to create stability. The Five maintained order throughout the world by primarily working together. This piece of exposition may be a significant clue as to how Yutani will strive to reclaim what is rightfully theirs. Perhaps they will all rally against Prodigy in order to gain access to the organisms, which now reside in Prodigy Labs, especially considering that Morrow is working as a rogue agent and not directly under Yutani's orders anymore. As Slightly arrives late to the party, a surge of emotion overcomes him, unmistakably due to his family now being held hostage until he can perform Morrow's request and do so in just 24 hours. Therefore, there is some contention over the presence of Wendy's brother, especially since nobody else's family is allowed to visit. In the same instance, and with a heavy sigh of relief for Slightly, he may have just found the perfect host to rid himself of his time-sensitive troubles, despite the repercussions of his peers and creators. In easily the best ending of an episode of Alien Earth thus far, Wendy tracks the sound of the creature to the lung being housed in the tank containing the lava. She sings in both its language and melodic tunes and receives a response. All the while, Kirsch watches from a distance to see what emerges from this encounter of unknown possibilities. First, the xenomorph larva is incredibly impressive. It has all the subtle similarities of the undeveloped form we originally witnessed in 1979's Alien, but with an attention to detail never seen before. The manner in which its arms and legs remain plastered to its early form, not quite ready to free themselves yet, its tail bearing the weight and its only means of traversing, yet the metallic teeth are poised, alert and ready to do damage from the get-go. I think in this moment, Kirsch realizes what we, the audience, understood in contemplation after the episode wraps, that the tadpole, now turned lava, has already developed a connection to Wendy through its form of communication. The big question is, what does this mean? Does the young xenomorph see Wendy as a protector, like a mother figure, or something to protect? Has Wendy just become a substitute queen in what could turn out to be the alien resurrection we've long been waiting for? I'm more surprised that I'm not completely turned off by this idea, and the more I think about how this show might proceed with such a revelation, the more I'm looking forward to each episode. I'm just praying that when they go down this route, whatever it may be, it is of intelligent design and doesn't end up becoming a gimmick we regret. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the interaction between Wendy and the Xeno baby, as I wouldn't want to be the one who inadvertently pisses off Wendy from now on, if some form of symbiotic connection forms between them. But I will say that after watching the trailer for next week, wow, which shows off some interesting scenes on board the Maginot, we could spend a lot of time learning what happened on its journey back, and I'm very excited to see some backstory to the wonderful introduction to episode 1, and who it was that sabotaged the vessel. My friends, I'm looking forward to seeing you next week, signing off.